Good evening, everyone. Before we begin, I'd like to let you know that this presentation is being interpreted in Spanish. You can click on the world icon at the bottom right of your Zoom screen to access it. If you're on your phone, there will be three little dots at the bottom. You click on that in the bottom of your screen, and it will allow you to choose your language preference. It is currently, or will be interpreted in Spanish tonight.
Hola, buenas noches. Mi nombre es Mariana Rivarola y yo soy la intérprete para esta reunión. Si desean escuchar esta reunión en español, existe la opción de hacerlo clic en un globito que hay y ahí seleccionan español. O si están en un teléfono donde hay tres puntitos en la parte de debajo del celular, y ahí también pueden seleccionar el idioma de español. Thank you, Neil.
Thank you, Mariana. Give that a minute. They need to activate the other channel, and then Mariana will move on over. We're good? Well, welcome everyone. My name is Neil Ramus. I'm the Director of Community Engagement and Education for the Sonoma Land Trust. I am zooming to you all from Sonoma Land Trust Global Headquarters in downtown Santa Rosa. This presentation, titled Living with Lions, is scheduled for about an hour, which will then be followed by a 30-minute session of question and answers. You can submit your questions via the Q&A option at the bottom of your screen at any time during the presentation or even during the Q&A session. The chat has lots of other stuff in it. We will not be monitoring the chat for questions. So if you do have a question, go to the very bottom. There should be a little option that says Q&A. Go ahead and click that and type in your question. Sonoma Land Trust is a local nonprofit that protects land in Sonoma County for everyone's benefit. We've been doing this work since 1976. We're coming up on our 50-year anniversary, and we've protected about 58,000 acres in our county so far. We accomplish our work through the generosity of our members and contributors like you in the audience. So thanks to all of you out there for helping us protect beautiful Sonoma County for the future generations. Pardon me. As we pursue this mission of conserving land in Sonoma County, I and we at Sonoma Land Trust want to recognize that we are zooming to you, or we all stand upon the unceded ancestral lands of many indigenous peoples and many indigenous tribes. We want to honor their knowledge, their care, and their stewardship of this special place that we now call Sonoma County across the ages, and acknowledge the deep and lasting damage that colonization has inflicted on them. We at Sonoma Land Trust embrace our responsibility to learn from and to protect their cultural and traditional connections to the lands of Sonoma County. So tonight we have a special presentation, again, titled Living with Lions. We in fact will be joined by both Quinton as well as Liz Martins. First, I would love to introduce Quinton. Quinton is the founding partner of True Wild and the principal investigator for the Audubon Canyon Ranch's Living with Lions project. Dr. Quinton is the former founder and CEO of the Cape Leopard Trust, a predator conservation NGO based in South Africa. He has over 30 years of field experience, having worked in wilderness areas throughout much of Africa, Saudi Arabia, and the United States. Quinton turned to studying predators in 2003. He completed his PhD in the ecology of leopards of the Cederberg, Mountains, South Africa, through the University of Bristol in the United Kingdom in 2010. We're also joined by Liz Martin, and you'll find out why. It's actually a fun reason. Liz Martin is an environmental educator with a focus on predator conservation. She is the Living with Lions education coordinator and enjoys teaching local children about mountain lions. Liz draws on her experience as an environmental educator in South Africa, where she set up and ran the Cape Leopard Trust and Education Project, which focuses on bringing children and adults into the wilderness mountains on environmental camps. Liz has been intimately involved in both mountain lion and leopard research with Quinton for the past 15 years. Liz is also the co-founder and managing partner of True Wild. She manages the business part, leads local hikes, and does special safari guided trips for family groups to Africa, which I'm going to talk to you about later, Liz. I have a 2-year-old, probably a little early to do that, but not too early to think ahead. So with that, I'd love to turn it over to Quinton, who's going to hopefully be here for the rest of the night for his presentation, but he's going to tell you a little bit about what he's got going on right now.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Neil. That's great introduction and a wonderful opportunity to address all the participants tonight. Yeah, we've got a rather exciting thing happening at the moment. We have an opportunity to capture and collar a mountain lion tonight, and we have our traps set, monitoring the traps with satellite trap transmitters, as well as cell phone cameras, so we can actually watch what's happening with the cages. So what I want to do is, if the mountain lion comes to the cage and goes in, I basically need to mobilize, and that's for the welfare of the cat, that we want to get to the cage within a half an hour, and then hopefully be able to collar and track this individual that we're targeting. So anyway, we don't know. Sometimes it happens early in the evening, other times it happens at 2 or 3 in the morning, and we monitor the traps right through the night. And we've had mountain lions go into the traps at like 6 o'clock in the morning after monitoring right through the night. So anyway, we'll see what happens.
Well, I think I can speak for myself as well as the audience when we will not hold it against you if you need to leave your educational program about mountain lions to go save a mountain lion that needs to be collared. So we will not hold it against you, and I know Liz will step in your stead, and we're looking forward to it. So with that, Quinton, please tell us about living with lions.
Great, thank you. Great. Well, the project, the Living with Lions project, is a partnership with our company, our conservation company, True Wild, and Audubon Canyon Ranch's Living with Lions project. And we started this project in 2016 under the umbrella of Audubon Canyon Ranch. And it's been a wonderful experience for me to have been able to come from South Africa to do work, conservation work on mountain lions here in the Sonoma region, and we're looking forward to telling you more about it. True Wild does focuses on conservation work on mountain lions in this area, and we also use our experience, wilderness experience, to be able to connect people to wilderness through nature experiences like safaris. We find it an incredibly important part of understanding and having a better understanding about nature, and also sort of being more engaged and able to or having a better chance of actually getting involved in conservation work and making a change in our world, which we drastically need. So we look at these opportunities of getting people into nature as a way of connecting them, having them buy into it, and then hopefully get involved in conservation. So my background, I started my work in the safari industry, working in some of the wildest, most amazing wilderness places in Africa, and I did that for about 10 years, and sort of got to a point where I felt I needed to do something more to contribute towards the conservation of those wild areas. So I went back to university as a so-called mature student, if you like, and went to study a degree in science and zoology, and then went on to work on leopards in South Africa in the Cederberg Mountains. It was here that I really got to sort of find my path, I suppose, in this conservation field, because leopards were highly persecuted in this area by farmers for killing their livestock, and they were incredibly difficult to study, these very elusive ghost-like creatures wandering through through these wild mountains. And through the project, I realized how important leopards were, in our lives, not only from an ecological point of view, but also how they could act as a very important ambassador, and just seeing how these sexy species, if you like, could draw attention to broader conservation issues where, if I was studying some kind of, not as sexy animal, like maybe a saber-toothed field mouse or maybe a squirrel or something like that, people wouldn't, take as much notice. But studying leopards and mentioning the word leopard kind of pricked people's ears up, and they were like, wow, I have a story about a leopard, or this is such a fascinating or beautiful animal, and using that connection to then go on to look at broader issues that leopards might be having, or the habitat in which leopards occurred might be experiencing. So I began a broader look. My work morphed into more than just an empirical sort of look or understanding of leopard ecology. I had a strong focus on the human wildlife conflict side of things, and then really started trying to see how, on a broader level, one could use these flagship species, or these sexy apex predators, if you like, to draw attention to bigger, broader conservation or environmental issues. And it was at that point I received a postcard from a friend of mine, and I was quite perplexed by this because, I looked at this postcard. It came from America, from Colorado, and a colleague of mine that was working out west, and I looked at these intrepid guys doing this amazing work to protect mountain lions out there, and even the dog had gone through the thick of it to protect these animals, and I was absolutely perplexed. And I thought, well, I wanted to kind of branch out and head to America to see what it's all about, and ended up coming to California, where I was able to set up this mountain lion project under the umbrella of Audubon Canyon Ranch, and start looking at how the mountain lion would be this flagship species with which I could engage with people. I could find ways of protecting mountain lions, but also look at what the mountain lion represented, from an ecological point of view, but also a personal point of view, how it affected us in our lives, and the way we see these animals, and the spirit of wilderness, having a large predator like a mountain lion in our midst. So my study area, the line that you see, the red line that you see here in the map, delineates the area that California Department of Fish and Wildlife permit me to capture and collar mountain lions. Once the animals are collared, they can move anywhere beyond those borders, and we place satellite GPS collars on the animals so that we can track them using satellite, and are able to know where they go at any point in time, through this really amazing technology. Mountain lions. So this is a North Bay project, but mountain lions, and bear in mind that mountain lions have got over 50 different names attached to them across different countries and continents between North and South America, and typically in California we call them mountain lions or pumas, whereas if you go further east or north, you might have people calling mountain lions cougars. If you go to Florida, they might be called, they're called the Florida panther. but they could be called catamounts, longtails. And in South America and Central America, they mostly refer to as pumas. Now, one of the things that really perplexed me, I suppose, and I was surprised when I started working with these cats as to how timid they appear compared to leopards, the leopards that I was working on in Africa. And it intrigued me, so I started looking into it, a bit more. And where we are here in California and in North America, it's interesting to note that 12,000 years ago or further back, mountain lions would have been sharing this habitat, this area, with several much larger carnivores, predators, cats. And the biggest of them, the American lion, for example, would have considered the mountain lion a rather tasty mid-morning snack, because they were like over 800 pounds. And a mountain lion, a male mountain lion, is maybe 150 pounds on average, 100 in our area, only 120 or 130 pounds. Females about 80 pounds. So mountain lions really are what I would consider as being a mesocarnivore, or an intermediate predator, if you like. Similar to the way we would look at coyotes and bobcats as being mesopredators, mountain lions are in fact mesopredators. And they have the temperament of a mesopredator attached to that. The fact is that about 10 to 12,000 years ago, mountain lions and all of these other big cats were extirpated or eradicated. They died off in North America, only to have mountain lions from South America and Central America repopulating North America at a later stage. But all those big guys were gone. So suddenly, where mountain lions were sort of tiptoeing around these big cats in this area, they got back to this area, and all these other big, nasty, dangerous cats were gone, and they became what we see now as the apex predator, because they're the biggest cat. Here, wolves and mountain lions would constitute the key apex predators in North America now. So they've kept their baggage with them. They just got the same temperament genetically. They're most closely related to cheetahs, and they just appear to have a more chilled temperament. And they're obviously very capable predators, but they don't have the temperament of a leopard, for example. So I'll give you an example. And this is a leopard in my study site in South Africa, in the Cederberg, caught in a cage. I believe what that leopard is saying is, if I get out of this cage, I'm going to rip you to shreds and really enjoy eating you bit by bit. Now, a mountain lion, on the other hand, this is a mountain lion in a cage on our project.
Wow. That's amazing. What a breath.
Quite a different beast, to tell you the truth. And in many ways, when we approach these animals, we see how, where a leopard cornered, all it wants to do is attack and kill you, and a mountain lion, all it wants to do is get away from you. And that's, there'll be exceptions, but that's typically what we've experienced. So you would not try this with a leopard back in South Africa. If you valued your life, this is a mountain lion being released out of a cage, and they just really are a very much more chilled out. But again, don't go and try and playing with mountain lions. We've got this little warning sign. You know, they're incredibly capable predators, but different to leopards and other big cats. So one of the ways that we study these cats is through the use of trail cameras. And I'm sure many of you have been exposed to these in some way or another and have these on your properties. Audubon Canyon Ranch has a absolutely fantastic project, trail camera project. Kate Remsen runs this like an efficient machine, and has collected over 120 cameras, or has placed over 120 cameras on properties in the Sonoma and Napa valleys. So really engaging with the public to have people place these cameras on their properties and learn more about their elusive wild neighbors. The cameras are just a great tool, and often capturing images of animals which you just simply don't get to see, because it's an observer that sits out there, rain or shine, 24 hours a day, summer or winter, and captures the movement of animals going in front of it. And it's a great tool. So we get these really cool pics, which you get through the trail camera project that Kate runs with Audubon Canyon Ranch. You get to sponsor a camera, and she'll come with her team, and they'll place a camera on the property, and then gather the data, share it with you, and the data go towards our research work. And so you don't just get these pretty images, but we actually use these data. And amazingly enough, sometimes you just get these incredible situations. And one of the cameras that I placed out on the Sonoma coast area just happened to have a female mountain lion stop in front of it. The chances are almost zero, but she happened to spot something, and it might have been a deer or something like that, but something piqued her interest, and she was looking over the side of the slope, and then she walked around a little bit and came to have another look, and then started really getting interested. So crouching down, and it might have been a deer or something like that. And then suddenly her ears are flat, muscles tensed. Is she ready to pounce and attack this animal? And then maybe it saw her, smelt her or something, but suddenly the hunt was over. But this was all sitting right in front of one of our cameras that just happened to be there, which is really amazing. We also can place or set the cameras to take video, and Kate managed to get this absolutely classic video here, which I'll play. There's a female mountain lion, adult. Two, three, four, five adolescent mountain lions following mom. This is just extraordinary to have 6 mountain lions, a puma posse, a pride of lions here in Sonoma wandering around. And this is pretty much a record. There hasn't been a record of 6 mountain lions this age before, other than one case where a female had possibly adopted one. It's an incredibly unusual thing. Normally mountain lions have 2 or 3 kittens by this stage, if they're lucky to have one. Here's mom, P12. It's a female that we had collared with 5 offspring. We're also able to take the time stamp data from the collars. For example, we run all the mountain lion images that we gather. We're able to put them into a database, and we can then sort them, and you can suddenly start seeing how the indiscriminate capture of these mountain lions walking in front of the cameras represents activity by mountain lions, because they're walking in front of the camera. So we can see over over 1,000 photographs. We're able to tell that, well, if you want to really get to see mountain lions active, you want to see them at around 8 o'clock at night. If you don't want to see a mountain lion, being active at all. Noon is clearly the time to do that, but it gives the shape of this graph is correlates well with the GPS data that we have from the collar data that shows us what mountain lion activity is. So the cameras give us a really good representation of mountain lion activity. They also tell us what the activity patterns are of every other animal that is being captured in the area. And they also tell us whether you have a presence and absence situation where if you're not getting photographs of certain species, you need to put a big question mark there and go like, why aren't we seeing these animals here? They should be here. Or if you're getting, if the time or if the activity periods show that perhaps human movement in an area is affecting the movement of the animals. So in an area where you've got more people, maybe animals are becoming more nocturnal, or something like that. Or those are trends that one can gain from these trail cameras. Also, the types of habitat that the cameras are in. There are all sorts of really cool research things that can come out of it. And as the technology improves, we're at the point now where we're working with a number of different organizations where the data that we collect, these images, we can process them, millions of images. We've got over 3 million images. We can process them through a computer program, which can identify those images down to species level. So it can say, oh, this is mountain lion with a 95% plus confidence interval, or this is, a deer or squirrel or whatever it might be. And taking it even further, we're now working with groups where we're going to be seeing whether mountain lions, who look very similar because of their uniform color, whether this program can identify them to an individual level, so we can identify individuals from the cameras. With leopards, it was a lot easier because their spot patterns all differ, like our fingerprints. Mountain lions are a little trickier, and this technology would be amazing if it works. So the cameras give us one really good picture, if you like, of what's going on with mountain lions, but it doesn't tell the whole story. And the coloring, the use of the new satellite GPS collars, has totally changed the game for researchers working on these elusive cats, where we're able to reconstruct, the movement, how these cats see the landscape, what they're eating, and all these different things through tracking these animals with these tracking devices. Before we go into that, one has to actually catch a mountain lion. So tonight we've got these traps that are baited, but we also have traps which it's a design that I myself and our partner Neil Martin, who's also our True Wild partner, designed an electronic trap, fully electronic, because this is California, Silicon Valley, and all of that. It's pretty cool. And the trap can measure the height of the animal going through it, so that only a mountain lion-sized animal will trigger the cage. We don't use bait. We put the cage on a trail, and the mountain lions just sort of wander through the cage, and then as they go in, the cage recognizes this mountain lion-sized animal, and it triggers the cage. We're now taking it further, using AI cameras to be able to identify species that are as big as a mountain lion, like bears. If they go through the cage, we don't want the cage to trigger. It will then communicate with the cage to say, okay, don't trigger because you're a bear. So that's the next step. So this is an example of a female mountain lion at Bouverie Preserve walking into one of our electronic traps. So I've also, to improve the safety for the animals, I started using nylon netting, something I did in South Africa for certain carnivore species that bang themselves around in the cages. And this has been really great for mountain lions because they can't hurt their teeth on the wire, and they can't cut through the nylon netting because their cutting teeth are at the back. Their carnassials are sort of midway on their jaw. So once we've got the animal caught, we immobilize it, and then we work the cat up, like hopefully we'll be doing tonight, and we get as much data as possible. We collect blood samples, tissue samples, we measure the animal, we poke it, prod it, and measure the temperature and heartbeats and everything on a regular basis. And we have an hour to work with the animal, 45 minutes to an hour, and then we place this GPS collar on it. We're able to age the animal by the teeth, gum line recession, where the gums recede from the canines. That gives us an indication of the age, and we have pretty good accurate age estimates from that. You can also see from the coloration of the teeth. And this cat is not a smoker. It's just their teeth go more yellow with age, and they wear down. So we also, there's a nice view of a mountain lion's foot, the pad. If you look at tracks, you'll see note the 3 lobes at the base of the pad. That's a typical cat track, and no claws that you'll see in the track itself when you see it on the ground, because they're retractable. So we've collared 29 mountain lions since we started the first one was collared P1 in October 2016, and we've gathered some really awesome data from these cats over the years. What happens is the collar, these are the GPS data points for one mountain lion, P1, a female mountain lion, adult female, over a year period. And the stars are nighttime points and the circles are daytime points. The collar takes a point every 2 hours. So the cat's walking around, and every 2 hours we get a GPS location, and we're able to overlay those on maps and to see where they're going. And each one of these points has got the GPS, the spatial and the temporal data attached to it. When I'm sure, if you just kind of look at the area there, so from Annandale down to Fetters Hot Springs is kind of the length of the range for that female. Going out a little bit, the green is P1, so that's the same cat as the previous slide. The purple is P4, another female in Napa, going mostly Napa, going across into Sonoma. And then the yellow is a male P5 who had this very large territory from Marquest Springs in the north all the way down to the 116 west of 12 and down to Arrowhead Mountain south of Sonoma. So he had a really big range, and typically what happens is that a male would have an exclusive range, mostly exclusive, and then he would have a number of females within his range, each of them having an exclusive range within that male's territory. And there is overlap. It depends a little on the area. Going out even more, this is just some more cats. It's sort of adding more collars to the list, and here you can get a bigger, broad idea of where we've had cats collared. Some of these on the extremities have been dispersal cats. We had one mountain lion, P19, who was P's son, who was hanging around with his mom in the Glen Ellen area, going up to Annandale and that. And then finally, mom kicked him out and said, "I've had enough of you. Off you go." She booted him out, and you can see how his route took him east. sort of just north of Napa, but going east out into valleys, and he looked like he was heading towards the Sierra Mountains. He crossed the Interstate 80 twice, and ended up in some very dodgy open agricultural areas, and finally circled around UC Davis and the Berryessa area, and then headed back down towards Fairfield, where he died at the age of 2 from health issues, feline leukemia virus, and a few other things. The other cat was one that dispersed from the Bodega Bay area, went all the way up to Manchester on the coast, and then hung around all along the edge of the coast, and then eventually got shot by a farmer near just north of Gualala a little while ago, after he killed some sheep. But we would never have been able to track these animals if it were not for the satellite collars. We wouldn't have known where they've gone to, what they were up to, whether they survived or not, or any of those things. We've also been able to learn, looking through the eyes of a mountain lion gives us a real sense of where wildlife corridors are. It's fascinating to be able to track mountain lions and see what they see as good habitat. And here's a good example of how all of our data point to mountain lions crossing between the Mayacamas and the Sonoma Mountain area in the Glen Ellen Arnold Drive region, where Sonoma Land Trust has got a property there, Glen Oaks, around Bouverie, just north of that. And the cats typically very seldom cross anywhere else along 12, north or south of that. Most of the time they're crossing in that area where it's vegetated. And that's a good example of these cats giving us some idea of these corridors. The corridors, and connectivity in the landscape is something which is really important for us to understand. And mountain lions, through the genetic work that we've been involved in, and Kyle Gustafson has sort of led the research on this in California, where we've been able to identify pretty much 10 populations of mountain lions within the state. And you can see the North Coast population, where we are, doesn't mix with the cats in Santa Cruz or anything like that, or south of San Francisco. And they also don't really mix much with the Western Sierra Nevada cats. There are also some small populations that are quite isolated down in the Santa Monica's and the Santa Anas. And that's where, for example, the overpass that has been built in the Santa Monica's will help with the connectivity between cats from the eastern, from one side, the eastern side of the highway 405 to the western side, so that there can be movement of animals, not just lions, but other animals across these areas. So in our area in the North Bay, what we're seeing is very much a case of mountain lions choose these dark green vegetated areas. What you see here on this map is, the red dots are GPS locations, and that's where the cats are choosing. And when we've placed over 100,000 GPS locations over, these vegetation maps, and that more than 90% of the points fall on these dark green areas. Even as much if the cats are in very densely human populated areas like P26, who was an extraordinary cat. We called her Wobbly. She had a neurological sort of disorder of some sort, but she used to hang around and use the creeks as corridors, but again, just sticking to the vegetated areas. Even if she was going to Costco or to Target or whatever, she'd find a way of getting to Best Buy through the best route in a corridor, and that's what these cats choose in our area. So we can take a broad stroke and look at our North Bay area and go like, okay, well, these areas outlined here are good mountain lion habitat, and the light green areas which are grassland areas, open grassland areas, are not good mountain lion habitat. That doesn't mean to say you won't have a mountain lion moving through there, because if there's a creek or some kind of vegetated corridor, the mountain lions, especially dispersing younger animals, will use those routes. Even the Macy's mountain lion, you might have remembered in 2018, I think, or somewhere around there, that young cat that was darted at Macy's in Santa Rosa was using Santa Rosa Creek to get through Santa Rosa. And that's quite expected of the younger cats. It's a good way of understanding of whether you're in good mountain lion habitat is if you go onto a Google map in the North Bay, you know, and look at how green it is, and that's typically will give you a sense of. And if you're along a creek, if you live next to a creek or something like that, there's a good chance mountain lions can go by them. So it's an amazing thing to be tracking cats here, really. And one of the things that I've just been blown away by is when you look at the landscape, you're like, wow, look at all how green that is, and it's fantastic. But when you drill down and you overlay land parcels over these maps, suddenly you see, one mountain lion can have 17,000 private land parcels in its territory. And it's not uncommon for cats to have over 10,000 properties in their territories. And what we're looking at here, what blows my mind, is that each one of those parcels that you're looking at is a fenced property. Different kinds of fencing, mostly, I'm saying, mostly the case. But also within those properties, there are often more other fences. So you have all of these fences in these areas, and that affects the movement of many species in different ways. Mountain lions can easily jump over fences, not a problem. But deer, for example, their main prey, can easily get blocked or affected by fences. The other thing, of course, is that each of these private parcels is almost like a mini ecosystem. Each one of them is managed in a different way. Every property has a different access to water, different plant types, some, non-indigenous plants, grapes, or whatever it might be, vegetable gardens, who knows what, but each property. So you're looking at a multitude of mini ecosystems out there, and it's quite hard to get one's head around how to understand the movements of these cats and other animals, looking at on different scales. On this scale, for example, it's like, whoa, that's pretty crazy. We're able to use the collars to learn more about their breeding and the survival rates. And here's a little story. We had an opportunity to capture a female mountain lion in just north of Sonoma in 2016, and set a cage out, and here she goes. I'll let you watch this video because she's rather elegant. Unfortunately, the video stopped just there because of the age restriction. We couldn't show you the end of the cage closing down. I'm joking. The video just stopped there. But she, this was P16, this female that we caught and collared, and she was quite young, a young adult. But it wasn't long after she gave birth to two kittens on the 14th of February 2020, on Valentine's Day. These two cubs were born. I was fortunate to find the den sites, and this was some video I took with my iPhone. So these two little guys were born in Calabasas open space, and I was able to follow their development, and at around 2 months old, Mom says to them, "Okay, guys, we're out of here." So this is the end of their den site, and they then have to follow her around, and she then walked up to cross Trinity Road. For those of you who know the area, and she'd gone across into Stewart's Creek, and she'd killed a deer there and fed on the deer with these youngsters, and then they moved on a little bit further from there, just onto the Bouverie, the eastern part of Bouverie Preserve, and they were unfortunately had this male P5 come along, find them, and kill both of them, and then he proceeded to eat them, and what was amazing was that P5 is actually the father of P16. So from our genetic work, we've been able to show that he was their father. But what had happened was that he had lost his territory east of Highway 12. He was over on the western side. He was getting pressured by a new male that moved in to the western part on the Sonoma Mountain side. So he started looking to try and get back into his old territory, found these kittens, killed them because he knew they weren't his, and then proceeded to try, start taking over his territory on the eastern side again. What happened was, when you remove mountain lions, you create incredible disturbances in their social systems. When you remove a male, for example, you open up a vacuum or an open area where he used to have his territory, which invites other males in, sucks them in as a sink, if you like. And those males, the first thing they do is they try and, if they come across any cubs of, other mountain lions, they'll kill them because they know they don't belong to them. And what happens is the female then goes into estrus, and within 2 weeks, she'll be able to mate with the new male that's in that area. So this is an example of a female in estrus calling for a male. Calling all males. Well, so happened is that P5, of course, was quite aware of this, and he'd gone sort of wandering down to the French Laundry in Napa for a snack, and then made his way back and found her P16, mated with her in May, and then I was able to then find the next kitten born. I was actually sitting out listening to their mating. I couldn't see them. They were in some thick bush, and it was pretty hot, I remember. But then marked off my calendar. Okay, well, they're mating her. Let's look at when the cubs will be born. And she had one cub, which was born in this madrone. She kept in this madrone, burnt out madrone stump. And I then followed this cub, who then became P27 over the course of her life. And the collar data, the collars have been so powerful, in allowing us to understand and learn more about these cats. Unfortunately, we were able to follow P16 and P27 to their death, where they died up, one up on Sugarloaf and one just below Sugarloaf. And it's possible it was due to poisoning from an illegal pot grow site. And, so we would never have known about this if it wasn't for the collars. But both mom and daughter died last year. So we've been able to track what these cats eat. We can retrospectively reconstruct their diet. We use the GPS points where you find a cluster of points over a period of time. It represents the cat spending X amount of time in one small area, and then we go to that spot after it's left and go and find the remains of what it's eaten, so we can try and understand what they're eating and where they're eating them, where they're killing them. So far, the data shows that deer are still the main prey for mountain lions, livestock just over 10%, and then we have a mix and match of a bunch of other things. Coyotes get taken, domestic cats, if you don't keep your cats in at night, well, they're bound to get driven over by somebody or eaten by a bobcat or coyote or mountain lion, so keep your animals safe. And some wild boar, in mostly younger ones, had a few birds and that as well. What has been interesting from the deer perspective is that when you have the fawning season, the deer flood the market with these fawns, with these twins, and then for a period, fawns are the main part of mountain lion diet. And as soon as the fawns get older, and there are fewer of them on the landscape, and they're harder to catch, that goes down, and suddenly you get to the rutting season when the males, for example, are just completely oblivious to everything. The bucks are wandering around with their heads in the clouds looking for the females, and the mountain lions just love it because they can kind of walk in front of the buck and sort of wave their paw in front, and the buck's like, out of the way, there's the does over there. Anyway, they get taken out a lot at that time, and so do other adult big deer, but a lot of buck get taken down at that time. So it's been an interesting thing to see. Just going back to the fences, we've seen how mountain lions use fences to kill, or to their advantage, killing deer by running them up into the fences. And this is an extraordinary video where the camera, again, just sitting out there, just happens to see a buck walk in front, and there's a fence on the left-hand side that's running. You could just see part of it, but the buck is walking along the fence, and those bright lights in the background is a mountain lion lying there, and it's waiting. And there's the buck, oblivious, while the mountain lion killed the deer up against the fence. And this is what we find on numerous occasions where the mountain lions are using these fences to improve their foraging success. We know now pretty much, and suspected it and would have said this beforehand, but any mountain lion will kill livestock that is unprotected at some point. There is a high probability that it will happen. It's not aberrant behavior. It's not like this is a naughty mountain lion because he's gone and killed my sheep. A mountain lion is out there feeding on meat, animals, and goats and sheep fit into that deer-sized sort of prey size, and it's they're easy to catch when they're unprotected. Fortunately, they don't focus on them because there's certainly a lot of them about, so they still prefer deer, but they do kill livestock. So this we've now shown in California definitively that the biggest threat to mountain lions in California is the presence of these so-called hobby sheep or goats on the landscape. So when I say hobby, it could be for biofuel reduction, for fire purposes, or just having a couple of goats or sheep on your property as pets or whatever, but small scale farming, not commercial farming. So commercial farming is not a threat to mountain lions in California, is not anywhere near the threat to mountain lions in California, the same way as the small scale farming is. And having your animals up in a tree like this is not really a good idea, because you'll see mountain lions can jump over pretty much any fence you put in front of them. This is P5, the male, And this is an 8-foot fence. Easy peasy. They can jump. You know, you need to put a 12-foot fence, vertical fence up with a 3-foot overhang if you really wanted to try and keep a mountain lion out or have a good chance of that. So really amazing athletes. So you need to lock your animals up, and you know, if you have a small number of animals, the safest thing to do is to lock them in a pen. You don't have to have the shade cloth in a pen like this. You don't have to have it go as high as that, but maybe 5 feet high, at least, because not having the visual stimulus is really important. You need to cover, so you can have wood or like a barn structure or a wire fence, but it needs to be covered around the base. And you know, just to make it easy for residents here, we've had this wonderful young gentleman, Sami Qureshi, 16-year-old schoolboy robotics expert, come and help us design a fully automated pen system with our partners at Sonoma County Wildlife Rescue. And he came, it's brilliant because you have on your phone, you've got an app which he created and he called it OPen, which I thought was really cool. And you can see this structure at Sonoma County Wildlife Rescue. We've got it up there, as an example for people to see if they want, but and we'll be offering this to landowners who need this sort of thing. But you can train your animals to go in at night. You have some good food in the pen, and they'll go in, and then you lock it up automatically. And you'll have cameras inside, and you'll be able to see what's going on. And that's where most of the threat is to your livestock is at night. The other threats that we face with mountain lions in California are, you know, road strikes. So this is a young mountain lion killed on a road, and again, the corridor thing. Well, you know, overpasses in some areas are really important to avoid car strikes, like in the Santa Monica's. That's been the biggest issue that they faced, really, is getting cats from one side of the highway to the other safely, and the overpass is going to be a really good solution for that. In our area, we've seen these cats moving across quite successfully around, as I say, in the Glen Ellen area. But what we have noticed, which was interesting, is we've had a number of cats killed by cars in the western part of Sonoma on small, narrow roads, but where the bush goes right up to the road. And that's, so there's a lot of habitat. It's not a corridor issue. It's not like, oh, there's a habitat issue, we need to build an under or overpass here. It's on relatively quiet roads, in good areas with good habitat, and we've had 3 mountain lions killed like that, you know, fairly recently. And then we had one collared one hit on Highway 101 just near Healdsburg by a truck, which, you know, was a more understandable. He was trying to cross Highway 101, which was a little bit more tricky. The other threats are, and I hope that you're aware of this, but rodenticides, rodenticide poisoning is just an awful thing, and it's incredible to see how it affects different animals in different ways. Mountain lions, you know, over 400 mountain lions were necropsied in California fairly recently, and 92% of them showed exposure to secondary poisoning from rodenticides. So that is, they're eating animals that have eaten other animals that have eaten rodenticide, or, you know, they've eaten an animal that has eaten rodenticide. And there is a possibility that notoedric mange is, you know, also is as a result of this poisoning. But there are simple solutions, the same as the way we try and promote coexistence with wildlife with mountain lions. There are the same kind of coexistence should be, or the principles should be used for coexistence with other species. And, you know, the Sonoma County Wildlife Rescue guys have a fantastic exclusion service, you know, where they help people understand, well, this is how you keep raccoons out of your house, or this is, you know, mice, or whatever it might be. You know, these issues are, you know, essentially you it's up to us to find these solutions, because without damaging the environment through the use of indiscriminate use of poisons, for example. And for us here in Sonoma, fire is obviously a big thing. Well, we're looking at fire, and we at the point of publishing work on how fire affects mountain lions. And interestingly enough, fires can have a positive impact on mountain lions, and they can have a negative impact. Where on top of Hood Mountain, for example, areas are burnt completely to, with nothing left, like a moonscape. That's not good for mountain lions, so they don't like open areas. But in the Nuns fire, for example, in 2017, the irregular burn shape of parts of that fire actually increased the habitat for mountain lions through the edge effect. So when they're hunting, they get more suitable hunting types of habitat because the fire created these new edges for them. So there are pros and cons to this. It's not a simple thing. What has been very interesting for us going through our current research, trying to understand more about the movements and habitat selection for mountain lions here, is that when we look at these habitat layers now, where we look at this green bush, we go, oh, this is fantastic mountain lion habitat. Well, when you go on the ground and you visit the properties, suddenly you're walking in a park with a beautiful canopy, and it's completely devoid of vegetation underneath, because landowners have, through fear of fire, gone and removed all of this understory, all the biofuel, all the habitat for all the animals that were living in those areas. All of that has been removed, and suddenly we could look at that and go like, well, that's not good mountain lion habitat anymore. Yes, they got shade if they wanted to walk around and not get sunburned, but they got no cover, and the area has changed for other animal communities as well, and food for their main prey. So it has become incredibly complex. Trying to understand this. And you're welcome to ask questions about this later, but we're struggling with it, and it's very interesting. Particularly, it's not as if you're just dealing with one or two properties. To get those data about each property is so difficult, because there are 15,000 properties in one cat's territory, for example. So the education component of what we do is incredibly important. Liz, you met her early on in the talk. My wife works with Audubon Canyon Ranch and education projects she set up with them, and we find it is incredibly important. I mean, I do talks to the public, adults mostly, but the children's education stuff is vital. Trying to learn about coexistence, and this is not just coexistence with mountain lions. This is the principles of coexistence go way beyond mountain lions. It goes to how you live with other wildlife, and even different cultures or religions or races or whatever. It's understanding what it takes to be able to coexist with something or someone. And it's a wonderful metaphor. Again, working with big cats like this opens up incredible dialogue into all sorts of different things. Going full circle with True Wild, with our experiences that we offer, and that we feel the opportunity where Africa has really, really done so incredibly well, being able to offer opportunities for people to experience intact ecosystems with intact megafauna, and incredibly wild places where you can have profound wilderness experiences that can impact your lives. And we believe that these experiences can change people's lives, and we find ways through our what we do to even look at contextualizing the experiences. It's not like you're going on holiday to Africa, but you're going to have this experience where what you learn there and what you see there can be brought back to where you live, and the tools that you pick up on the way can be used anywhere in the world. And we hope that has the kind of impact on people that the influencers of this world, businesses, leaders, who really get it. When you're out there and you suddenly the penny drops and you go like, so that's what it's about. And you can just see how important it is that those influencers can use their business structures to use their networking to be able to do something good in our environment. It doesn't have to be with mountain lions. It doesn't have to be with African wildlife, but to really understand that we're living in a global system that needs urgent attention from every sphere, from the non-profit environmental sphere to business corporates who must realize that without an environment to operate in, they're not going to have a business or a long-term business strategy. Everything depends on us protecting this, and mountain lions are a way for us to engage with very important influences in our world here in North Bay, California. Just as a parting slide, I saw this and I had a good chuckle because this was a mid-pen open space sign. And if you read if you encounter a mountain lion and then somebody went and put the something over what you're supposed to do, and it was rather, lure kitty to van, perform the YMCA movements, use child as bait. Not a good idea, but anyway, I thought it was quite funny. And the squeak like a mouse if you're attacked, well, the likelihood of being attacked is very low. So at least you don't have to practice that too much. Anyway, that's it for me. I waffled on far too long. So I hope that's the end of this. And I'd like to just thank our partners, our research partners who have been amazing, and the landowners who have granted us access to their properties, to visit kill sites or to place cameras. You guys absolutely vital to the project. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Quinton. I hope you can all hear me. Right as you're wrapping up, my whole tech just fell apart. So can you all hear me? Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all. That was fantastic. I really appreciate your overview, Quinton, and the engaging videos and photos. You really helped us learn a lot. We're going to move on to our Q&A session in a moment for those who would like to stay. But before you leave, please know that you can stay engaged with the Land Trust by following our various social media accounts or checking out our website. You can also watch our previous Language of the Land webinar presentations and download educational materials on our Nature at Home page on our website, sonomalandtrust.org/nature-at-home. And you can also keep an eye out for these Language of the Land webinars, which do happen monthly and will be continuing for the foreseeable future. And you can see all of those upcoming ones, usually about a month out, at sonomalandtrust.org/outings. So as you all know, Sonoma Land Trust is a local nonprofit organization, which means we rely on donations from individuals, businesses, foundations, etc., to make our work possible. If you like what you heard today, please consider donating. It is coming up on end of year. We will have a match coming up, so please keep an eye out for that. Your gift helps support land protection and preservation throughout our beautiful county, including the habitats that these mountain lions live in. To make a donation online, you can go to Sonoma Land Trust, our website, and click the donate button in the far upper right-hand corner. Thank you so much, and thank you for your time. I'm going quickly because with well over 200 people in attendance tonight, we have a lot of questions to get through. So I am moving quickly, and we're going to dive right in if you're ready, Quinton. You ready?
Yep, go ahead. Yep.
Well, first, before we jump into the questions, I am going to take my privilege as host and share this. This was sent to us by one of our stewardship team, and I would love Quinton's professional opinion weighing in to help settle a debate of what is the relationship between these two kitty cats. So that was taken on one of our preserves in Sonoma County in Knights Valley. And the question to our staff, this is the fun part of working at a conservation organization, we get these on Wildlife Wednesday, is what is the relationship between those two? Can you help settle the debate?
It's most likely a mother with her dependent offspring, so it's sort of a cub that looks to be getting near dispersal age.
All right, I think that was our winning bet as well. So thank you, Quinton. I appreciate you settling the debate. Next, before we jump into questions, I am going to relay an endorsement of Quinton. This is from Maria. It's not a question, it's an endorsement of Quinton and his methods. We had a lion predate on one of our llamas, and he made meaning of their death with his project. Signed, Maria. So you're having a good impact on the community and helping those lions. So thank you, Quinton.
Thank you, Maria, and thanks. Yeah.
I'm gonna check off a bunch of these several of these questions at once, which is, tell us about the collars. There's concern about their bulkiness. Do they inhibit movement in brushes? Do they prevent eating? Do they have to grow? How do the lions grow with them? There's all sorts of questions about collars, and we've got working on 42 questions right now, so we can keep the answers pithy.
Yeah. Well, the collars have been used, researchers have been collaring mountain lions since the 1960s, on a large scale, and, on other large cats around the world. Basically, the short answer is no, it doesn't have any significant impact to them, to their feeding, to their breeding, or anything like that. We would love to see smaller collars in that, but it's right now, it's just not possible because of the need for battery life and ruggedness. But the ergonomics on the collar allow for the cats to be able to groom themselves and do everything. And we recapture these animals often and can see that and get video and photos of them to see that they're in really good shape. So the collars don't affect them. And, this is a small percentage of the population we're collaring. And it's because of people, the fact that we're here on this planet, that we have to collar them, learn more about them so we can protect them and ensure that their habitat is there. So we would not be collaring them if we didn't have to. The advantages far outweigh the disadvantages of having something that is aesthetically not pleasing. Although maybe the cats see it as some bling, seeing as they cost $3,000 each. Just by the way, they might like that part of it, but I don't know.
Get some gold plating on there. Put them out. All right. Similarly, curious, someone is asking how many lions are currently collared in your study area?
Well, we have collared 29, but currently we have 8 collared.
All right, great. And several questions about cameras. I think people are really interested. Both, what kind of cameras do you use? And do you see any changes or differences? The question is the time of day trail camera capture data, is it seasonal or is it year round? Yeah, well, that's part of what you would like to capture through the cameras, is to see whether there's changes. And it depends on where you live, where you've placed the camera, whether you'll pick up those changes. You can document them, and the types of cameras. The best thing to do would be to, get in touch with Kate Remsen from Audubon Canyon Ranch for the Trail Camera Project. She can advise you on the cameras that they're using quite successfully. They're not that expensive at all. And you could also partake or participate in, donating to their project, which essentially buys you a camera and having their team manage everything for you. So I think it's a great program, and with over 3 million, probably almost 4 million images now, it's making it's really important here in this area. Wonderful. I'm going to actually come back to a fire question, but I'm going to build off what you were talking about. The cameras are helping track, and we use those cameras to document movement through the environment. The Land Trust also does some wildlife camera work, and we do some protection work on the wildlife corridor. This question is, do you share the corridor information with the county and municipal planners or councils or board of supervisors so that they can integrate potential wildlife corridors into long-range development plans and protection plans like they do in Canada?
Yeah, we've offered to assist in various developments. For example, the Sonoma Developmental Center and you know, spoken with Caltrans and offered our data for their use. I think that that's one of the great things about these partnerships here in Sonoma with different organizations like the Sonoma Land Trust and Pepperwood and different groups is that, you know, we can act as a resource using these data. It's absolutely, we try and collaborate as much as possible.
Well, building on that, and feel free to say no. Do you want to weigh in? The question is, how will the potential development of Sonoma Developmental Center impact mountain lions? Would you like to weigh in on that?
Sure. I mean, I don't, you know, I think is the big thing is to ensure that the footprint isn't enlarged. You know, there's the fact that there'll be more people there again, and there'll be that activity will likely have some impact. And if residents have got cats and they let them out, well, there are going to be interactions and conflict or negative interactions, you know, emerging from that. So, you know, that's clearly going to be an issue. I don't think it's going to affect the, you know, in the big scheme of things, you know, it's not going to drastically affect the mountain lion population in the North Bay, but it is a concern to see, you know, the plans for too many people moving into that area for sure.
Thank you. Sonoma County, there's obviously a lot of focus on fire, and so there's a couple different questions. And I know you spoke about fires and detrimental, denuding the landscape is bad. Healthy fire, low temp fire can be good. Can you talk a little bit about have the recent North Bay fires impacted the total cat populations or places that they're visiting? And then secondarily, someone's curious about controlled burns like they did at Pepperwood today, which I'm sure many of you saw the smoke column. Do you know if controlled burns have any sort of influence on cat behavior or health? Yeah,
I think that we're really just learning now. We're sort of starting to tease out what these impacts are. And as I said, I mean, I think that we can speak with some confidence about the impacts of having an open area as being not suitable for mountain lions, you know, and then focusing on areas where there is cover and vegetation. So, you know, that will have an influence. That said, you know, some of these controlled burns are also creating opportunities for regeneration, you know, grasses coming up and improving the habitat overall for going forward. So mountain lions have evolved in the system. It's a fire-driven ecosystem. They've lived with fire their whole lives. So it's not new to them. I'm quite sure that they'll manage quite fine. I mean, I think it's I think the excuse me, it's the anthropogenic influences or the way that we manage fire that you know, it's not natural in that sense. So we managing things again, and I don't know what those impacts are going to be.
Yeah. Interesting. So those are some heavy questions. Let's have something a little more fun. So there's some concern about, you know, taking those kitten videos. Were you in danger when you were in that mountain lion den videoing little kittens? And what happens if she came home, Mama?
Yeah, well, the biggest danger was slipping off the edge of that ridge, I think. Not, you know, that's, but no, we track the mountain lions and make sure that mom's not around, you know, when you go into the den site. It's not advisable because it would stress her out, and you know, she may get a little aggro, although typically, you know, even then, even with kittens around, they still aren't really as aggressive as a leopard would be. So no, we're pretty careful about that, and we also have good data to show that you know, being at those den sites doesn't influence the behavior, or the, you know, the mother that moves the cubs to another place because she can smell our presence there or anything like that. So I was able to, in fact, that female was rather interesting because she kept the cubs in exactly the same place for 2 months. I visited the site several times, and she didn't move them because normally they would move them every sort of week or 10 days or something like that, just because the site becomes too, not appropriate anymore. But she just kept them. She was inexperienced. It was her first litter, so I put it down to that.
As a first-time dad, I understand. You're just overwhelmed. I can't imagine. I did move with a baby, so it was terrible. I will never do it again. So there you go. There's also some curiosity about the dense sites. Now, it looked like when you had that shot, they were just out in the open.
Yeah.
Is that normal, or was it in a den? More restricted?
No, well, what happens is right early on for the first 10, 12 days or 2 weeks even, the mom finds a place where she can stash the kittens, where she can still access them to feed, for them to be able to suckle her. But they can't move around much at all. They kind of are pretty helpless. So the site is actually, at that stage, is probably the most dangerous, because it's a site that she needs to be able to get into, but they can be relatively safe. So anything else could easily get in them, and it's only after they start growing, their eyes open and they can start moving around a bit more. She then, well, from the other den sites that I've monitored, the mother would move the cubs to a place where the kittens cubs can crawl into a crack or away out of danger. So she'll leave them and they'll crawl into a difficult spot where it's very difficult for other predators to access. We actually had video footage because I kept trail cameras going on those sites, and we had a bobcat coming up on that ridge there. And fortunately, the cubs had found a hole somewhere where they could hide out in. But it was amazing that they didn't get taken by even an eagle, golden eagle or something like that. They were really pretty exposed. I was amazed.
That's yeah. So they actually, will she call them out and to nurse?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
They'll just hide and then come out. Quinton, do you collaborate with the Bay Area Puma Project?
No.
Okay. And then following up on those reproductive questions. So do you know the gestation period of mountain lions are?
Oh, yeah. Well, like 92 to 95 days, typical. It's like around about there.
Okay, another quick question here. Mountain lions and bobcats, do they overlap territory? Is it not an it? I mean, if we all have neighborhood cats, you hear the fights out back. Are there cat fights out there, or do they not bother each other?
Well, mountain lions eat bobcats whenever they get a chance.
Traps triggered.
I've just had a trap triggered by one of our mountain lions, so I'm gonna.
All right. Well,
I'm gonna leave Liz to answer questions because if anybody wants questions, but I'm out of here. Thank you very much, and
thank you, Quinton. We all understand. After that hour, we definitely get it.
It's the Napa cat. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh yeah.
There we go. All right, I'm out of here. Bye. Thank you.
That's one for the record books. All right, sorry, folks. Sorry, not sorry. You all watched live as a trap is triggered and Quinton runs out into the wild, go help a cat, make sure he doesn't hurt himself or itself. Hey, as I say, that's live television. Here you go. Liz, thank you for joining us the last few minutes here. I know you probably need to help get him out the door. So
yeah, no, it's fine. Yeah, there's a little bit of mayhem going on here, but
it could have been better timing.
throw me any questions that are still out there. Absolutely.
Sure. There was some questions about tracking. I lost the question. Oh, here it is. I live in Mill Valley and they get a lot of next door messages about seeing cat sightings. Do you know of any groups that are doing tracking or tagging in Marin?
No, there aren't any at this point. There are some trail cameras out in that area, so they're kind of being monitored that way, but no one has the permits to trap in that area at the moment.
Okay, there's some follow-up questions around Quinton's message around, pin up your animals, let's be safe, let's live in harmony. And so there's a couple questions here about that. So do you know of any good ways of repelling lions from harassing livestock or other things like odors? You know, sometimes people use really like other types of urines and things.
Yeah, I think because they are here, they are the top predator. That isn't a thing that seems to work on them. You know, it really, and Quinton probably already said this, that it really ends up coming down to having livestock put away in a secure location. You know, there are things like flashing lights and sounds, like putting the radio on. I don't know if Quinton mentioned that. So some things like that can act as deterrents. But it's where we live, that because there's so many people around and so many noises, I think those sorts of things are less likely to have a really like lasting effect.
Mm-hmm.
There have been some interesting studies done with researchers in Santa Cruz put trail cameras out on mountain lion kills, and then they played sound recordings of human voices or other, and a variety of other noises. And with human voices, that would send them off. They'd leave what they were doing. So they definitely do have a response, an avoidance response to human voices.
So replay this webinar out with your livestock to drive the mountain lions away.
Yeah.
So can you speak briefly to using other animals as a deterrent? So protective llamas, mules, dogs, does that work? Or again, just lock them up, let's keep them safe?
Well, you know, absolutely, those things do well. Dogs work very well. Livestock guardian dogs are really good. Generally, if people have only got a few livestock, you know, with hobby farming, it's not necessarily worth it for people to do that for themselves. I mean, from, you know, the point of view of, you know, a fair amount of training and care goes into keeping one of those dogs, but they work really well. Llamas, I think because of mountain lions kind of background, they grew up in South America eating llamas and alpacas and things like that. So they actually don't work. I mean, we've had llamas that have been killed by mountain lions here. So that in South Africa, people were using them to protect the animals from leopards, and that was working. But for some reason, mountain lions, it's not. And it is, you know, mountain lions, that's their main food source in South America. So that's
Sure.
probably the reason. Donkeys can be helpful. Yeah. I think of all of those, definitely dogs is the best option.
Okay. And unfortunately, we came up to time. I know we have a ton of questions that we're not going to be able to get to, and I apologize, everyone. We moved quick, and Quinton had to run off and tag a cat. So the last question I'd love to know is about historical range and distribution. You know, we saw a lot of maps that they loved the vegetated areas, the riparian, the waterway corridors. And this question is, do you have any idea what the historical distribution of puma were in the Sonoma Oak Savanna? Because most of Sonoma County historically were these larger open spaces with grasslands and oak savanna with oak trees. Do you know, were they using the valley floors more when humans weren't or development wasn't as putting much pressure on them? Or have they always been more of a vegetation? And do you know how the population has changed over time?
That's a great question, and one that obviously it's hard to answer because you know, that we didn't have the kind of technology we have now to kind of record mountain lion sightings, for example, and cameras and things like that, and obviously the GPS data. But wherever mountain lions live in very diverse habitats, so that's, you know, around here it's those kind of forested areas or the, you know, the thicker growth. In other parts of their range throughout well, North and Central or South America, they live in very different areas. And so, but the kind of the common thread is that they need cover. So they will always seek out cover in whatever habitat they're in. So that would make me think that they would still have been tending towards creeks and more vegetated areas, even, you know, when this area was not heavily populated by people. Though obviously there would have been more of that around, like now you just get this sort of flattened areas.
Yeah, so it's kind of just in their nature to be using camouflage and being in vegetation and probably more in the valley, but not a lot.
Yeah, or using rocks, or using, you know, depending on it, or drainages, anything that keeps them more hidden.
Okay. Well, I did say it was the last question. There's actually one more that I think we're all on our mind and was actually asked at 11:08. So before Quinton had to leave, said, would love a follow-up if you're able to trap a cat later tonight. So I think that's on all of our minds. We do send a post-webinar thank you email, even if it's just a new cat or this is P so and so. I think we're all dying to know more.
Okay, that sounds great. If you do that, that's perfect. Yes, so we'll definitely
we'd love to hear from you. Ingrid or I will check in with you tomorrow and just cross our fingers. We just need to know. I need to know who it was that disrupted my webinar. So well, thank you, Liz. And please extend our heartfelt thank you to Quinton. I hope he has good luck out there. I hope you stay safe and you keep advancing science and learning about these precious animals in our ecosystem. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone, for
good
coming.
Night, everyone.
We love having you here. And you will get a follow-up email with any additional resources and asking you to evaluate our webinar. We appreciate your time and thank you for coming. Bye-bye.